I want to talk about what to do once you've made a lot of money, right? Like, let's say your business is making you, I don't know, 100K a month, 10K a month, doesn't matter, and you've made some money. What do you actually do with this money? How do you make this money make you more money, right? Because your business, right, like you can make yourself rich, right, by working, but you can't make yourself wealthy. The only way to make yourself wealthy is to have your money do that for you, right? There's a famous saying that money cannot be made, it can only be multiplied. And so, if you understand this, you understand that in order to become wealthy, you can't work your way to wealth. You have to multiply and invest your way to wealth, right? Look at anyone who's a billionaire. They didn't just work their way in the corporate ladder or whatever the case is to that case. They multiplied their way there, right? By investing in companies, by taking big risks, etc. Right? And to give a bit of context why I even have some sort of credibility to share this with you, before becoming an entrepreneur, I was a licensed dealer representative of investments, mutual funds, etc. I worked at a bank. I studied finance in school, and I studied some of the biggest, I guess, investors and wealthy people in our lifetime, like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and a lot of those guys. So I've read all those books, etc. And so I've managed, millions of dollars or helped manage millions of dollars in investments, blah, 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 right? And help people invest that kind of money. And so I know a thing or two about, managing money and whatnot. And so I kind of want to share like my process for how I kind of manage my money. And this is not financial advice. Do what you want. This is just my own opinion. You can take this as you wish. But how you can like keep more of the money you make is one of the big things. How to actually keep more, right? So you can increase profits. And how to invest and manage this money to make sure you make more money, right? So instead of just becoming rich, you can actually become wealthy, because that's the real goal, right? And so that's what this whole video is going to be about. Okay, so let's kind of break it down. Let's just say, for example, you make, for simplicity's sake, 100K every month. Okay, there's two ways you can go about it. You can split this 100K from the get-go, right? And so let's just say, right, you split this and you have like multiple different accounts this goes into. You could do this, right? So you could split this into, for example, a tax account, a reserve account, an operating account, and then like a shareholder equity account, and then like a growth account. And so I guess just to elaborate on these, if you don't know what these means, this is kind of crucial. Operating is where you pay all your expenses from, right? So like, you'll pay your team from this account. You'll pay your ads. You'll pay whatever sort of biz expenses you pay from this operating account, right? Shareholder equity is the account that gets built up to pay out the founders of the company, right? And so let's say if you own 100%, there'll only be one of you, but let's say there's three of you, right? And you guys each own 33%. The shareholder equity is where you guys will actually take that money from, because obviously you're not just going to take money directly from this 100K, right? You got to pay the operating expenses and the taxes first before you ever pay yourself. And before you even do that, you should invest reserves into the company, and also have a growing / investing account for your company before you pay yourself. So paying yourself should be the last thing. We can talk a bit about personal finance later in a minute here. But this is just an example of shareholder equity account, okay? Growth account is simply the account you will use to grow. However, here's the thing. Most people, when they think of growing, they really just think of like ads and stuff. And so in theory, this all comes from the operating account. And so that's why the growing and reserve account can be one and the same, because it's kind of like an account you have for reserves, right? Like you could call it like a savings account, where you put money aside in there for in case you hit a really bad month and you need to still pay your team, right? Or you guys want to expand into a new opportunity. You need to take extra reserves of cash. Well, you have that in your reserves or your growth or investing account that you can take from. And then obviously last one here is your tax accounts. Do not forget, you have to pay fucking taxes, especially when you make money. And so put this money aside right away. It's one of the first things I do. As a matter of fact, in the first 3 months of the year, I just put aside all the money I know I'm going to need for taxes for the rest of the year. So I act broke for the first couple months, and then I know I'm covered, right? And so at the end of the year, my goal is that my tax account will be higher than the taxes I have to pay. So let's say, for example, you have 20K in your tax account and you only had to pay, let's just say 16K in taxes, accounting fees, etc. You would then be left with 4K. And so you can either go and blow that 4K, invest it, or just keep it in your tax account and woohoo, you just, got a bit more money back, if you will. Okay, we digress. But here's the accounts that I typically create for the business side of things. Obviously, you can have more, you can have less. Some people like to have different accounts. I'm just giving you a blueprint of something that I've done, right? Now, the first way to sort of do this is as soon as you get paid, right? You can do this at the end of the month, every paycheck, right? You could just say like, hey, every time money comes in the account, have an automation that, 30% goes to operating, 10% goes to shareholder equity, 20% goes to reserves, and what is some of that? 40% goes to taxes, right? You could have that set up, or you could do it manually at the end of every month, where it's like, hey, all our money came into this one account, right? Cool. Let's distribute, 30% to operating, 40% to taxes, yada, 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 right? And then in theory, you would have zero left in this account at the end of the month, and then it would run back up the next month. So that's one option you could do. What you could also do, a bit messier, I don't really like this as much, is make this account your operating account, because technically you only pay taxes on your profit, right? And so if you create this account where the money goes into your operating account, then what you could just do is at the end of every month, ideally that account gets cleared to zero. And so what happened is, let's say you bring in 100K throughout the month, you pay your operating expenses from this account, and then whatever is left over at the end of the month, let's just say for example it's 70K, this 70K you'd split. So you go, oh, I know my tax bracket, let's just say for simplicity's sake it's 50%, let's put 35K into the tax account, and then we'll split up the rest of this 35K into shareholder equity and reserves, right, or savings account. And you could do like 17 and a half, whatever the math is. Yeah, I think it's 17 and a half K each to both accounts. You could do that. It's a bit more complicated. I recommend put all your money in one account and then distribute it to the other accounts and pay from there on out, just so you can manage your money easier, right? But this is sort of the model I like to use to make sure you can grow your business. And make sure you have all the bases covered, right? Operating expenses, shareholder equity, taxes, and reserves are kind of like the four main accounts. Once again, different people have different accounts. By all means, do whatever you want to do. This is just something I've seen, work for myself. Okay. Now, let's talk about how you should invest in your business and also the personal finance side of things. So, first things first, you should take out as little shareholder equity as you need. Get your business to pay for any and absolutely everything that it legally can. Once again, this is not financial advice. You do use this at your own peril. But you want to pay yourself out as little as possible, because obviously personal income tax is a lot higher than business tax. Keep the money in the business account. It's also safer. A lot of other shit you can look it into, but literally just pay yourself what you need to get by, right? So let's say you need 3K to get by. Boom. Pay yourself 3K. And the whole point is you build up the shareholder equity account and the reserves account. So if you ever need more, you can pay out more. But the whole goal is you want to try and give the business as much as possible, because the business gets taxed lower and so you get taxed higher. So obviously this is going to be taxed more. So you ideally don't want to take a bunch out at one time, right? Like you just kind of want to split it up evenly, so therefore you don't get fucked with a big tax bill at the end of the year. And once again, you don't need a lot of money to live. So don't live below your means so you can save more money. Okay, keep more money in the business account to grow, which brings us to our next point. How do you actually grow the fucking business? What do you do? Well, in order to grow any business, there's only three things you could do. Bless me, please. Comment below. In order to grow the business, there's only three things you can do. You can get more customers. And you could argue there's two, but we'll make, right? You can either get more customers. You can increase the average order value. You can make your customers spend more, right? Or the third one is buy more often. And then you could argue like stay longer is also in here, right? But really the two main ways are get more customers or make your current customers worth more, okay? Which comes down to make them spend more, buy more often, or stay longer. So if we think of how you should invest, it should be focusing on one of these three things. We'll just call it these two things, right? Either get more customers or make your current customers worth more. And so if we break these two things down, which is more customers versus current customers, worth more, how we increase this with current customers worth more. This really comes down to your product. So one thing you can invest in is your product. How do you invest in your product? Typically with team, research, data. So this is what you'll be spending money on to make your product better, to make your customers worth more, stay longer, make more money. So you would invest in team, pay your team more, hiring new team members, doing research into the market, right? Paying people to do research, conducting your own research and gathering data, which may cost you money as well, right? There's obviously more things. It's just a simplified guide. Now, the more obvious one is more customers, right? How do you get more customers? Well, you could increase your team, make your team better, or get a bigger team so you can take on more customers. Or simply just invest in things that get you more customers, like spending more on ads, right? This is a very simple approach. And so if you want to ask the question, how do I invest in my agency? This is direct things you can do. Obviously, there's indirect growth mechanisms like masterminds, mentors, coaches, right? Partnerships. These are all things that are like probably some of the best investments you can make, right? Is like acquiring new skills, right? Acquiring new team members, right? Acquiring new access to different people, right? Unlocking new rooms. Those are all things you can invest in on the business level, right? To actually grow your business, right? But once again, fundamentally, only two ways to grow a business: more customers, make your current customers worth more, which means you either, and both of them typically come down to the same things, which is like make your team better, make your product better, spend more on acquisition, like pretty simple stuff. But that's how you'd actually there's like more nitty gritty stuff on how to invest in a business. But that is typically you investing in your team, in your product. So let me write this out: your team, your product, and your acquisition channels are probably like the best investments you can make in your company, outside of the indirect soft skills, right? Like masterminds, coaches, etc. Right? These are some of the best things you can spend your money on. So, yeah, this is kind of how I think about managing money when it comes to, business and all that kind of stuff. So, hope this can give you a bit of insight on to manage your money. Managing personal money, you could argue, is very similar. I probably do it different than most people. But still, same thing is you want to at least manage your money. Please do not have one account. Whatever you do, create multiple accounts, right? And at least just create fucking 3 accounts, right? An operating account, which is where all your expenses come out of, a tax account, and then a reserves account, right? At least just have a fucking basic 3. You know what I mean? And from there you can figure it out. So yeah, hope this can give you a bit of insight on how to manage your money so you don't just lose all this 100K. I see a lot of people, they make a lot of money, they're making 100K a month, but they lose it all because they don't know how to manage it. So this is a good structure of how to manage your money. Obviously, if you really need to and you're making a lot of money, just get yourself a fucking financial advisor to help you out with this kind of stuff. But make sure you get a G, not a fucking loser.